So that was the Tim Burton experience here in the Design Museum in London. What did you think of it, Axel?
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating stuff.
And you're not biased at all, are you?
Definitely not. Obviously, I've been a fan of Tim Burton since being a child, whether that be Edward Scissorhands, whether that be Nightmare Before Christmas, whether that be one of my all-time favourites, Beetlejuice, and of course, there is so many more to the works of Tim Burton. But it was fascinating just to see his process, just to see the drawings right in front of my eyes, to see the details in them, and to see the display of his works laid out right in front of you, and the extent of that process, you know, from those first sketches in his office all the way to them being created in films, or all the way to the stop motion little caricatures or the outfits, whatever it may be. It was really interesting to see all of this extensive works of Tim Burton and to see it all displayed in a great way as well. I must say that you walked in and it was first of all the room with all of his sketches there, and at the back of that it did have a recreation of his office where he will do these sketches, which was a nice introduction to it. And you went through to the stop motion section where it had, you know, Corpse Bride, where it had Frankenweenie, where it had Nightmare Before Christmas, all displayed. And I've got to say, those, I don't even know what to call them little caricatures, but those things that they use to do the stop motion, I never have seen the way they move or the way they work. But it was interesting to see the inner workings of those, the metal, and, you know, and you can really start to imagine how it would work. Do you know what I mean? Taking that picture or that video, stopping it, moving it, stopping it, moving it, stopping it, moving it. And you know that the process is so long anyway, but to see those little things right in front of your eyes, how detailed they are, the work that goes into it, and how developed they are, like, that's a proper piece of technology, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's great, like, and it was fascinating to see it right in front of my eyes. And then you go through to his film works, whether that be Sweeney Todd, Edward Scissorhands,
Dumbo,
Beetlejuice, Dumbo. I never knew that Dumbo was done by Tim Burton. And I love that film as well. I always say I don't like the cartoon version of Dumbo, but the live action Dumbo is amazing. That's Tim Burton. The Home for Peculiar Children. I've not seen that one.
I'm watching that soon.
Call me a bad Tim Burton fan, but you know, I can't see everything. And they did also have costumes from that Wednesday series that
Batman
is terrible. So there you go. But they did have Batman as well. Absolutely love Batman. They had the Catwoman outfit and things. Then you went through to a bit more of an immersive corridor that you'd walk down, all different shapes, where it'd have some of his pictures on the walls in terms of sketches and artworks. And then it'd also have some art installations that were created by him. And then it also had some photographs, because he loves doing photography in his spare time, especially when he is on set, and he does have those little models there. He'll just do a bit of photography there, so it was great to see all that displayed. And then the final exhibit you went through to see creations by other artists and creations by students and recreations of his works in this other area to bring other things to life in there, which was interesting in its own way as well. And there were some really fantastic pieces in there, but overall, I absolutely loved it. You know, I thought it was fascinating. I went all the way through it, and while Sean was in the last stream, because in the last bit they did have that like movie.
Yeah, it was like
section.
A 10-minute like short documentary about Tim Burton, which I have to say was very, very informative. Like, it just gave you a brief insight into what was his inspirations and stuff like that. And he talked about how he always loved monsters, and he wanted to bring those monsters to, like, he wanted to bring his own monsters to life and make people care about them the way he cared about monsters, which I found fascinating. And something about these exhibitions where it's an artist or a producer or a director who have a body of work that they've created over however many years. I think it's like over 30 years, isn't it, he's been making work for. And it's this body of work that he's collected and accumulated. And I'm sure when he was doing all this, he was never like, this would be great in a gallery one day. This would be great as an exhibition. But the fact that you're able to take everything he's got and he's held on to so much stuff.
Yeah, because there's so many
like,
drawings.
remember the napkins?
Yeah,
all the napkins.
There's all his napkins that he just draws on.
Yeah.
And it's clearly when he's out at dinner, and there's a napkin there, and he'll just do a doodle, do a drawing.
Yeah.
Well, there's loads of them, 100 of them. Do you know what I mean? All displayed there.
What's his name? Was on there. Jack Skellington.
Jack Skellington was on one of them. Whether that was done before or after the film was made, who knows? But you know, I think that's just a quirky piece of art, like a collection of napkins of all drawings of Tim Burton's characters by Tim Burton.
Yeah,
like a pretty cool and fun piece of art in itself. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's all pieces of works that are not necessarily in films as well.
Yeah,
are not necessarily well known. There's his own pieces of artworks, his own things that he would do in his spare time for fun. Two of which were my favourite pieces of the whole exhibition. So, you know, that was great to see. And as I was saying, while you were in that last stream, I did go around the whole exhibition again on my own just to quickly this is going to be my last time seeing all this stuff here, do you know what I mean? I just want to have a quick one more walk around to be in the presence of it kind of thing, because the works, I just find his artwork just so like captivating. And as you say, he brings his monsters to life. Yeah. And that's a part of life that I'm attracted to anyway. But the way his monsters look, his art, you know, his style of art is just so unique. It is just so fascinating. And I haven't met anyone that doesn't like at least one of Tim Burton's films.
Well, he's got such a wide
you know what I mean? Like,
variety of films, and I think it's interesting to see how he's influenced a subgenre of culture. Like, there is a whole group of people, call them goths or emos or whatever you want to call them, but that aesthetic of people has been very much adopted from Tim Burton's style of art and film and his vision for his world that he's creating, and people love it, and it's had such a massive influence on that aspect of culture. It's the people that are a bit peculiar that connect to someone like Tim Burton, who himself, by his own admission, is a bit peculiar, a bit weird, likes a bit of the weird stuff, a bit like us. And you know, it's really interesting just to see someone's body of work displayed like it was meant to be displayed, if that makes sense. Like, it was never meant to be displayed. He's just gone about his life and made these things, and now he's got this massive collection that, if you didn't know Tim Burton was a producer or a director or whatever, you'd think he was an artist.
Oh, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
100%,
like,
you know.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And, you know, if I went to a Steven Spielberg...
And I feel like that's what he is at the core.
Yeah.
Just an artist.
Yeah.
Where his drawings or pieces of art have just been brought to life in whatever way, shape or form.
Mental. Absolutely mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, really interesting.
But of course, the exhibition was absolutely amazing. It was really fascinating to see all of this up close and personal, but I can't sit here and do a complete review without giving it some criticism, if there is any. And for me, there isn't many, to be honest. There isn't really many.
Yeah.
The first thing is a selfish one, and that is that there was not a lot of Beetlejuice. We had so much of Nightmare Before Christmas, etc., and all of those stop motion things. But when it comes to the film works, there was just a little bit about each of them, and I just feel like Beetlejuice was one of the films that really put Tim Burton on the map. You know, there's a lot of them that have, but Beetlejuice is one of the top, it must be one of the top ones for him. And so, or maybe that's just me being selfish, but there was only 2 small models, and there was a collection of drawings from the film and his visions for the film and the characters, etc. And obviously some clips from the movie, but there was no outfits, there was no props, there was no anything physical from the film. You know, a handbook for the recently deceased. There must be, you know, 50 of those that were made. There wasn't one there. And so that was a little bit of a downer, but I know that there is quite a few Tim Burton exhibitions across the world displaying different things in different places, so maybe they are there, do you know what I mean? Also, Edward Scissorhands, what I loved about that was I actually saw the real costume that Johnny Depp wore and the actual gloves with the scissors on. Like, that was crazy to see, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd say that I'd want the Edward Scissorhands exhibition to be a bit more, but I'd rather it be small and have that there than what I got for Beetlejuice. Because don't get me wrong, you still got the pictures and his vision for Edward Scissorhands as well.
Yeah.
There, but there was a costume, and that's what I really liked. There was a costume for a lot of films, but not for Beetlejuice. Not happy about that. The only other thing for me was the soundtrack to the exhibition and the soundtrack to the experience, because it all plays into everything. And throughout all of the exhibition, there was just the same soundtrack, no matter what room you went in, of like a pencil sketching, of things moving, the intricacies of designing the pieces or the artworks or whatever, those little clicking, tapping, scribbling noises was the overlay, and the backdrop. It was the backdrop to the whole piece for the soundscape of it, which was nice in the first room. I understood it, I appreciated it, because it was his office, as I said, you know, and the beginnings of his works. But as I moved through the experience, I would expect that soundscape to change to match the room that I'm in. For example, when I'm in the stop motion film, or the stop motion room, why is there not clips and snippets of audio from the films being played? You know, some lines of text, bits of songs from The Nightmare Before Christmas, for example. These things that are so synonymous with Tim Burton, that make his work so unique and make people connect to them. And then when you go through to the movie bit, why was there not bits of Beetlejuice being played, bits of Batman being played and things like that? And then you move through to that bit where it's kind of, you know, oddly shaped, like an optical illusion with these different works. I loved that room, but it was still the same soundtrack, which kind of just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? It should have got a bit twisted, a bit warped, a bit whatever that may be. You take that and run with it, but it should just change before it moved to the end room, where it can be whatever it may be. It can wrap up and be the same thing as the beginning. I don't know, I'm not the expert, do you know what I mean? I've just got some ideas. But I just feel like that soundtrack really did grind my gears. It really got on my nerves by the end of it. Not that I was paying much attention to it, because I was you know, enthralled by what was around me, but it was always there, just niggling away, those taps, clicks, noises throughout the experience. Aside from that, it was perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, there isn't much more that I can say.
Yeah, I thought, like, if we're critiquing at this point, I'm comparing it to the serial killer exhibition. That was long. And I think I've got to start tailoring my expectation when it comes to these exhibitions. Because we got 5 rooms, I think. When I went to the serial killer exhibition, there was so much... I thought it was
never going to end.
Yeah.
Never, like,
there was so much. There. And I felt like Tim Burton had as much work to display as that exhibition did. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's just me, because I've been to that one and I'm just like, I was there for 3 hours, so I expect to be in this one for 3 hours.
And you could have stayed much longer. Like, we tried to get through it because we had other things to do in the day. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have things booked when we go to London, so but we're still there for 3 hours. Whereas with this, we didn't rush through it. Yeah, we were only there for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. But that being said, it's not that I didn't get enough. It's just I thought, like, you know, like you say, there could have been, like, you know, just something a little bit more. I don't know what it was missing. Maybe like his films brought to life a little bit. I don't know. Like you're saying as well about the soundtrack.
But then you got to think, this is an exhibition.
Yeah.
It's not an experience.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it is just there to show his works.
Yeah.
Which are kind of respected. But it's Tim Burton. Like, you can go anywhere. You can go as far as you want to. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really can. But for what they did, it was great. But I do agree in that, did you get your value for money? You did, in the sense that you were seeing his works and they were all there. But in terms of length of the experience, you can be in there for as long as you want. You can go back to it like I did. But there could have been a little bit more, maybe. But
saying that, if we're comparing it to what else was in the design museum, there's absolutely loads in that. So, again,
I wonder how busy that museum is when Tim Burton's not there.
Who knows? But it was really, really good. What would you give it out of 5?
5.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was giving it a 4, I'd just be being too harsh.
Yeah, I'd give it a 5 as well, just because it's fascinating. And there's so much of his stuff there. And there's so much, like, you learn. This is the thing as well, what you learn about them is just as important as seeing it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
And even if you're not a fan, it's great when you're there and you can tell that it provides that education. You don't have to be there because you appreciate his works. You could go there for an understanding, for a learning, to see the process of these things. Do you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And so that's great when it has that element as well. It provides that extra value, and that's why it adds to my 5-star rating.
Yeah. I would suggest that if you are in London or around London or you live in London, then you go and visit that
it has
exhibition.
already been extended, like it should have been finished by now anyway. So this is probably your final and last call to see this exhibition. The dates are below of when this exhibition is on until. If I could, I would go again. Do you know what I mean? But I just live too far away. But I'm glad that I've done it the once. I'm glad that it's been extended, and I've really enjoyed my time there. And I also enjoy looking at my copy of Percepto every time I walk up the stairs.
That's right, yeah.
That I did buy from the exhibition.
Yeah.
With that being said, thank you very much for watching. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. My name, of course, is Axel.
I'm Sean.
And we'll see you in another video.
Bye!